fashion, they will lock in themselves and LNG virtually into as the two teams out of Group Nirvana as we enter this Game 2 draft. And I already see Orianna sticking around so far, Rumble, Malphite if you still like that flavor on the new patch. Some champions to keep in mind here as we roll through the last couple of bans.
Yeah, and as we see here, it actually does look like it will be LNG first pick coming in here on the blue side, at least as we see on the screen. So if that is the case, then throw everything I said out the window. The LNG now gets the chance to select essentially their play style and what they would like to go for as potential options. Things like Pantheon and Wukong really stand out to me. They're not really a team that's prioritized a lot of these go button junglers. They want something that can be more proactive, obviously, for Croco, who has been the most successful player in Group Nirvana. With Wukong off the board, Pantheon could be an early pick here, notably something like, you know, Kali also is something that BuLLDog has found comfort in, but the Varus, definitely the power pick that is still available.
Yeah, right. The clear highest win rate AD carry maybe in the world right now. Definitely the numbers back it up in the LPL. They do trade the Rumble back over to Sasi, so he gets himself a pretty pivotal top laner left, even if we don't know how much we reliably trust him on the Rumble compared to a player of Sheer's caliber. But it's still a power pick nonetheless. A pretty simple trade so far for LNG and LGD. Coming out through the first couple of picks here. What does Heng want to secure with this sort of jungle pick? He'll grab the Nocturne, so I like that. Easy of execution and one of the better mid-game junglers. Exactly what we want for LGD.
Great call out earlier, Slayer, on that Nocturne. Heng has played it once already this split. He was excellent on this champion. He looked incredibly comfortable, and they were able to really take over through that mid game, that one-item power spike that you are constantly talking about correctly. So in this case, I'm curious to see what the answer is into the Rumble. We've seen so much K'Sante as the answer into Rumble. I still think this is a Rumble-favored matchup if you play it correctly, but it certainly is something that can stabilize and play for the late game. Is going to be the lock-in for Sheer. It's really a versatile comp. This final pick on B3 is going to be really important for LNG to see what their comp is going to be. I imagine this will be a jungle lock-in. If this is something that's going to be more passive, something that wants to play a little bit more into the late game, then you could definitely see LNG perhaps trying to play around, you know, something like maybe an Aurora in the back end of this draft. I expect this to be something more aggressive like a Pantheon as we see kind of the hover come through. It definitely makes the most sense. That's
what we call in the Colorcaster business a heat check and a swish there for Kman on the Pantheon call out. Pat yourself on the back, my friend. So I will say for the Nocturne pick, we have lost access to the two best mid laners, I think, that make this work. Orianna is the obvious first one. I do think Ryze Nocturne's underrated for being able to kind of like shroud the Realm Warp behind the action. So I'm curious to see what they want to pair up with this Nocturne for Tangyuan. You still have the Talia. Maybe if you want to go for the Aurora, I think those two can kind of work with the Nocturne. For now, though, LGD will try and make sure they have their own scaling threat here, which is going to be that classic Sivir. You know exactly what you're going to get out of this champion as the game evolves.
Sivir and Navarus, pretty standard matchup we have on the bot side, but specifically for Shaoye, I really want to point this out for the Sivir matchup in general. This is a player that we already saw in game number 1 can have some positioning mistakes at the back end of games. Sivir, a champion that really requires you not having those mistakes. It's definitely going to be something that we monitor. Support bans coming in for LGD. You want to make sure the Varus has as hard of a time as possible being able to play out that lane phase, especially because you have the first pick coming out of the bans here. I would expect a lot of these more aggressive mid laners to be taken away. Nocturne does not want to play with something passive. The Aurora, the Akali, like a lot of these more assassin-oriented mid laners would be kind of the primary combos. Don't sleep on a potential Syndra ban even coming in here from LNG to take that away. Tangyuan is a very good Syndra player and could theoretically be something that you want to pair up with in a team fight sense with the Sivir.
So yeah, I expect these last two bans, LNG to keep banning away aggressive picks next to that Nocturne, and then yeah, LGD taking away great Nocturne deniers. So Wild Growth Polymorph could be a big problem for a Nocturne. Obviously, if you could hit the Tempered Fate as missing, that could be a very big takeaway as well. I wonder, how much do you feel like we're already going to get maybe an Enchanter angle out of missing? Like, it might be weird, but like, does the value of picking Karma here for the later shielding into a Nocturne give you enough onus to go for this? They might still need a pretty big engage tool next to Pantheon, though.
That's my thought, is you kind of are worried about the engage here. Karma is definitely the best Enchanter option on the board. I guess something like Emilio could be possible, but I really would prefer an Engager here for missing, despite it being kind of against his own playstyle. It just feels like it fits the comp a little bit better. You know, if you want to go all in on the early game, that's what the Enchanter does. It says, hey, we have a Pantheon, we want to snowball this game, we want to make it as aggressive as possible and speed up the pace. But if you have those secondary options, you need to make sure that you have some way to be able to balance things out. And the Galio kind of gives you that in the mid lane. Obviously not entirely, but Galio, Pantheon as a mid-jungle duo, there's your proactivity. I mean, you want to snowball the game with Pantheon. That definitely gives you that. The Varus is going to be very stable on the bot side. You have a Cassante for tanking on the top side. You've got a pretty well-rounded comp here already.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of this Galio, right? You are effectively you're identifying Heng is going AD jungle. You picked an AP top laner. You really can't afford to flex AD into the mid lane here, and Tangyuan doesn't really have a champ pool. Or you go, all right, screw your Galio. We're picking AD mid jungle, and that's exactly what Tangyuan. You know what? I like the gumption behind that logic, because you're throwing out logic.
Yeah, you know, I can't be mad at it. I talked about it. You pretty much need to play something aggressive with the Nocturne if you want to make the most of that champion. Having him dive in alone is a death sentence. But look at this LGD comp. The damage that they are going to have in the late game is unbelievable. Rumble ultimate on top of Yone and Sivir is almost impossible to deal with for LNG if they get to that part of the game. And I think your bot lane's actually in a good spot with the Rakan lock-in. I like this LGD draft quite a bit, but LNG have so much tempo. If Croco does Croco things and is able to dominate that early game and really take things out of control, the map awareness and control that LNG could have here could be outstanding.
Well, we have, been critical of LNG for some of the way they play these games. Usually it's out of, brash confidence, over-aggression. I still think that they are far and away the best macro-dependent team. So now that we get to see two semi to global ultimates on stage for our two junglers, that's where I do favor LNG as we get set to go on to the Rift for Game 2. And Kman, I'll ask you the classic question, because I do find it a bit intriguing in this matchup alone. 1xN, what type of Varus do we get? Because I think there are arguments for both sides.
I agree. I actually don't think there is a wrong answer in this particular game. I think it really kind of matters how the early game kind of feels, and we'll see what Rooney ends up taking, obviously. But in this game, when you're looking generally at the setup that they have, got a lot of dive threats. Really wouldn't hate a poke Varus. I know people don't like it, but I'd like to see it here.
As we make it onto the Rift, it is a poke Varus. Game 2, LNG, LGD. You can see fully there. It's going to be 1x. You know what? I still really do like on-hit Varus. It's kind of my own personal preference, because whenever I like to play Varus, I like the feel of it. But as an on-hit enjoyer, knowing LNG's play style and how they feel like they're the better team from the opening get-go against all their opponents, to pick into that snowball you keep preaching makes sense, knowing what we know for both 1xN and LNG.
Absolutely. I think there are merits to on-hit Varus in this game to be able to try and match some Sivir in the late game, but overall, poke Varus is going to get... Right? Yeah, it's going to get significantly more done throughout a lot of this game, most of it. I know that generally in the League community, maybe our chat might be a little against a poke Varus, but I definitely think it makes a lot of sense for 1xN, and you want to talk about positioning, he definitely is not going to be a player that is consistently overreaching his bounds. He could have a lot of impact on this game. I
will put the warning out very clearly now, though. If this game goes long enough, I don't care if LNG have a 20k gold lead. If we get 4 item deep, this comp from LNG does not do damage. There is no reliable damage left. It's Pantheon, Galio, Lethality, Varus with a tank top. You better win this game at 30 minutes, LNG, or your clock is up.
And that's the thing, right? We talk about that Pantheon needing to have a lot of proactivity. You can control the map really well with Pantheon Galio, even from ahead, but that map control is so essential to making sure that the rest of your team is able to actually capitalize on these plays. It's not like you're not going into a semi-global on the other side with the Nocturne. We talk about the Rumble, the Yone, the Sivir damage all coming in. There are plenty of ways to burst through this team, even when they get a gold lead in the early game. So this is definitely going to be one that I think you kind of have to hold your breath for throughout the entirety of it.
Shaoye going to pull a classic Sivir maneuver here and look for a pretty decent cheater to get the coal purchase to play for that scaling game like we talked about. Junglers might be a little less as proactive compared to game number 1, knowing the Nocturne especially wants to just free farm level 6. maybe knowing Croco, he might look for a pre-level 6 Pantheon gank, but as we're going to continue to preach, this game really is going to revolve around what team can get their ults and play the map better. So we're just going to have to kind of chill until a lot of these ultimates come up.
Yes, we get some aggressive vision coming in from Croco. We'll see if Heng actually sees him here. He's in the pit. Isn't going to check him. Would be a very scary situation for the Pantheon with Rumble having so much lane priority on the top side, at least early on. You don't want to get that back interrupted. You certainly can't afford to be slowed down at this point in the game. But overall, nothing crazy happening up until this point. We had such a chaotic 2v2 in game number 1 with 2 very aggressive bot lanes to now have, you know, Varus versus Sivir, one of the more standard matchups. You know, definitely a bit of a change of pace here.
Good little check up from Missing to see if Shaoye's got the reaction time for Spell Shield on the grand entrance and knockup. They've got Croco on this same side, clearing out his bottom lane camp. So they've got decent hover to go for this push. Could parry that maybe potentially into a dragon, depending on the timer, but at the very least, they'll get some decent shove. But compared to game 1 on the Corki, Shaoye this time is lucky to be on the Sivir, which makes shoving into a turret an impossible way to punish an AD carry like this.
Yeah, pretty tough to really make sure that either of these bot lanes are in truly unbelievable spots. Again, 1xN is likely going to have a small lead here with just the way that the lane ends up balancing itself out. But Shaoye, 1xN, both are going to be okay in the early game here as we see that shove coming in. He's going to have to interrupt his back. That is definitely a timing problem for the Varus. So overall, small win, but we'll see what LGD can do with a lot of that pressure that they might be able to generate. We're just seeing junglers clear pretty standardly at the moment. Nothing crazy. None of the new techs kind of going on just yet with the Gromp, as we see Heng clearing his at the moment, and it looks like Croco will do the same.
It's just a nightmare for either AD carry to get a decent back off here. This thing really wants to be as annoying as he possibly can, knowing that his AD carry has that TP advantage, so he'll get his way back there much quicker. Second clears getting finished up for both of these junglers, and this is where Heng does have that ability to potentially get to level 6 off the bot scuttle, which won't spawn anytime soon. So this time he's perusing a potential lane gank. They don't know that Missing is reset until now, so 1xN does have to respect back up, but he has no idea Heng has been sitting here this entire time. And they're just going to walk it in. 1xN should have to flash, but the flash immediately comes from YCX, so he can get the fear over. He gets under the turret. Remember, he took teleport, no defensive summoner, and Heng is going to pick up a pre-level 6 First Blood Nocturne kill.
That is a huge kill onto the Nocturne. Very well played, very slow played there by LGD to make sure you can get into that right spot. Great job by Shaoye to protect his jungler's back overall, but this is the kind of proactivity that LGD having is going to, you know, really push them forward. We talked about LNG really needing to control the pace of the game here and, you know, use that Pantheon ultimate with the Galio to be able to make plays early. BuLLDog's level 7, Croco is about to hit level 6. They're going to have the ability to answer, but Nocturne ult now is going to be up and available very soon, and he's going to have a free kill with that extra gold.
And now he's got Sasi nearby. Try and fight for this scuttle. Croco will still win it, get over to level 6 there. As you called out, Heng going to get to his level 6 at about the same time. Wonder if both junglers will look to make their way towards the bot side. As our bottom lanes continue to trade aggressively. 1xN still really wants to fight here, taking a pretty aggressive position to get a piercing arrow down onto YCX, but not enough damage to really threaten Alistar just yet. You can feel, though, that LNG really want to get a hold of this bottom lane because Croco wants to play for this first Drake.
Yeah, but the Drake is going to be really hard to take now because of that level 6 on the Nocturne. It's going to be started up here by Heng. Croco is in the area. Again, you have that combo with BuLLDog if you want to pull the trigger on it. Could be looking for a bot lane play first, though. Definitely can't overextend if you're LGD.
YCX not having ult means him getting poked out is pretty treacherous. They are buying time for Croco to complete his clear. And yeah, so that little poke and little push towards pressuring that dragon is going to back LGD off. Pretty big win there for LNG because that first dragon would really help continue this early game dominance from LGD, even if the gold lead isn't really showing it.
This is quite a scary game state for both teams, ironically enough, right now, because LNG definitely do not want to fight into a Nocturne that has level 6 with an accelerated bit of gold. Probably don't even really want to wait for first item in that regard as well, but on the same turn, that Nocturne diving in can immediately be answered by the double semi-global from Pantheon and from Galio, so either team overextending could very much lead to the end of the game. It's on a knife's edge right now, and with Grubs spawning in 5 seconds, Dragon still on the map, there's going to be a lot of things to fight over.
The one thing I will say about the response from LNG is you will obviously get the Galio ult delayed because he won't be able to see any of his allies in the Paranoia to ult in, I'm pretty sure. But you can get the Great Starfall down, so it will be a bit of a delayed reinforcement that could provide pivotal in some of these tight moments. As we see Heng back on this Dragon. Again, fully spotted. Missing's going to make sure they even get warded trying to pull it out here. Croco going to come off of his blue buff. See if he decides to pull the trigger on the Grand Starfall and have BuLLDog join in as well. He's going to push out the mid wave now. This Dragon, though, already down about half HP. LG have to make up their mind if they're going to give or go. And we are slamming the big green button. Here comes Croco on. The lights get turned out. They're going to go after Heng, but he gets fully forced out of the pin. Now Shaoye's left in a 1v1 with Croco. BuLLDog should be fine off to the top side of this fight. LGD are just way too split apart here. Heng is one way. Y6 is the other. Shaoye is out of the fight. This TP feels like it's a bit too late. They're going to go after Croco nonetheless. 1xN going to hold on to those chains of corruption. Croco going to have to flash to get himself out, but LNG, they just lose a couple of summoners and steal away the first drink of the game.
Yeah, it's a really huge turn from LNG. This is what I'm talking about. It's so hard to feel aggressive, even with the gold lead, if you are LGD in this game, because there's so many tools that can collapse almost instantly. I really thought the trade there was just going to be Dragon for Grubs in, you know, both teams' direction. I thought it made sense for both, but LNG saying, no, we actually can get this Dragon. We don't lose a single person. BuLLDog gets chunked out on the back end of that fight, but it doesn't even really matter. Heng can't fight at all on the Nocturne. Once he pulls the trigger on the ultimate to escape in that instance, there's no way for him to be able to either protect the area or keep the fight up. So LNG once again going down a little bit early, but being able to fight their way back. And now Croco's on these Grubs as we get this replay here. Yeah, it's just... It's too much. It's too much of a trigger pull here. You want to go onto the AD carry. You want to be able to try to stun up, you know, the Varus to be able to push him out of the fight, but it completely sells away any chance of being able to get the objective. And if you do not get that kill, the entire game kind of gets thrown out of balance.
Yeah, credit to LNG for being able to punish this so well, but that TP from Sasa, I just think that's got to come earlier if you're going to look for that play. I feel like it should immediately come once we see like Grand Starfall and we see the Galios flying, and if you really want to force that fight, because what does it end up costing you on the back end? Sasa has to walk back to top lane, he loses a plate, they lose the Grubs, and now all of a sudden, you know, LGD still hold to a couple hundred gold in the lead, but the tempo is completely switched, and again, LNG doing what they've done so well in Group Nirvana, picking up early objectives that are going to force their opposing team to play into their wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad spot to be in right now if you're LGD. Again, the Grubs, really something you didn't want to give over alongside the Dragon. You don't want full objective control going in favor of LNG with a comp that really has a lot of agency on the map. But remember, we did hype this up at the beginning of this game. There is no game state that is unwinnable for LGD with the draft that LNG have given them on the other side. There are plenty of ways to be able to fight things out in the late game. You just have to make sure you're not throwing away bad situations, and they can wait this out a little bit, make sure that they continue to farm well like they have so far. Definitely still some avenues for them to play from neutral, if you will.
And speaking on that draft for LNG, I want to pick your brain a bit about this Galio from BuLLDog, because I'm still accustomed to, you know, 2025 Galios. This is my first look on a cast at 2026 Galio. The Rocket Belt, is that the new standard or something you're seeing from BuLLDog because he's recognized that LNG really have to index into as much burstable damage in the mid game?
I mean, it's kind of debatable whether you want to consider that standard right now, but it's certainly necessary in this game in particular.
Right.
Offensive Galio is certainly something that has, you know, really started to take over, and it's become probably the most popular way to play Galio, at least from my perspective, and I really don't see any other reason to kind of pick the Pantheon and pick the Rakan in particular down in the support position rather than anything other than trying to enable this mid lane. You see missing, just clearing some vision, but you're absolutely right. Like, this Rocket Belt definitely signals the direction that BuLLDog wants to go. He's gonna have to be a big piece. He's basically even on the Yone here. See how long that lasts.
Y6 again getting his health bar chipped away at as our junglers both go for the brawl. Heng with a good little stasis to get away from the Pantheon stun. They both lose their CC and then come off of the play. Mid laner's looking to brawl. We got a lot of people concentrated around this bottom river, but no one daring to really look for a big fight. Maybe it's just the top laners that'll go for it. Do we get to play my favorite League of Legends game show, Ultimate Chicken, with the top laners? Maybe. Sheer gets the Tofu Strikes back. He really wanted to pull Sasa into the all-out further lane. You can tell the way he was desperately trying to walk around him, but it does not manifest that way for him.
Well, Ultimate Chicken would have been a bit scary for the Rumble, who has no ultimate at the moment.
Oh,
so certainly would have been a bit nervous in that exchange, but overall, just ends up being normal. Speaking of ultimates.
Nice little proto belt, rocket belt out of BuLLDog there. Dodges the Fate Unsealed. Nice little outplay there from the LNG mid laner.
Yeah, you know, if you can dodge it every time, then all of a sudden that champion becomes a little less effective. So good to see that he's got the mechanics on him to, you know, get that early on in the game, get that confidence boosted for later on. Level 11, being hit by every single solo laner in the game at the moment. Croco, actually a decent bit up on Heng in terms of XP. He is a full level up at the current moment. But first items are being completed, and that is going to be the big power spike when you're talking about LNG. There is not a time that they want to fight more than right now. You've got your ultimates available on your semi-globals, and Dragon has spawned.
I'm honestly a bit shocked that we're going to reach about 14 minutes, so we've seen one Paranoia and one Grand Starfall, but I think LNG are a bit content with it, like you talked about, just playing for these Dragon timers. LGD rock up to the party. TP advantage is over on the LNG side for now, as Sheer joins with a huge shield, and that TP alone is going to get LNG the second game in a row. They take the first two Drakes off of the board, and picking up a Chemtech Soul, I feel like that's pretty valuable, especially to get off of the LGD comp.
Oh yeah, that is going to be really important here, and that is the advantage you get from this comp and from this draft, is that you're going to have control over a lot of these objectives. There's no way for LGD to fight this out.
Oh, here comes Missing.
YCX could be in trouble.
Yep, there's the grand entrance knockup. Flash from YCX. Missing is not going to follow with his ultimate either. They're going to just let YCX walk out without flash and without ult. I felt like there's definitely an angle to further the chase, but maybe nobody on LG feels like burning flashes for supports is worth it right now.
Well, you could see he flashed up, and a lot of the team was still walking down. I don't think they expected the flash up in that particular situation. I think that really benefited. Oh, ult for Cleanse going down in the mid lane.
Good timing on the Cleanse, but yeah, that's 1xN finding those small advantages again.
As we see another small trade, a lot of action happening. We were kind of hoping for something happening, Slayer, to pick the pace of the game up, and it's exactly what we've got. Got a lot of action going down now on the map. Portal combat happening a little bit in the river here. Heng is making his way. They're looking for this play.
All right, what are we going to... These jungle ultimates. I'm waiting for them to come back out here. There is the support ultimate on YCX. He doesn't have Unbreakable Will, but Tangyuan's going to find the Fate Unsealed onto 1xN, and he will go down. Missing gets flashed on by Heng. Croco does get a good stun. Missing's living for a while, but the Equalizer will help pick up the kill. Hero's Entrance just to get BuLLDog out of dodge. When he finds himself flanked, as all of LGD are going to look to collapse here. Croco flashes over the fat wall to survive, but BuLLDog still ends up getting cut down. It's LGD that make the 5-man collapse to break open this game.
They see the angle in the river to find a fight that they have yet to find throughout this game, one where they can genuinely burst down a priority target early on and get gold into the pockets of the people that need it. It's another kill going over to the Nocturne, but more importantly, what a fight from Tangyuan on the Yone in the mid lane. Really, really well played from him. Again, Missing and Croco are trying to establish vision and priority in this river with 1xN's protection, but they just overestimate the amount of damage that they have, and unfortunately, Tangyuan finds a phenomenal angle onto this Varus, and the moment that he is down, the damage is gone. Missing tries to get out, but there's so many tools. The Rumble Equalizer, the Nocturne over the wall. The ultimate from the Gallia was way too late, and at this point, there are no health bars left. Croco just barely gets out. I thought he would die to the burn over the wall, but BuLLDog is not so lucky. LGD a comp that scales, but Sasa's caught.
Yeah, that's what we call anticlimactic for the LGD fans. Maybe just everyone's breaking out fights here. Missing is about 10% HP as Tangyuan looks to continue to push this lead as such a menace on the side lane. I expect that Sheer is going to have to lane into Tangyuan most of the time going forward now in this game. Okay. Fate Unsealed, he's trying to create distance here. Sheer, good buffer with the Unstoppable. I mean, Y6 is still here. Sheer's going to go out, pull Y6 under the turret, but he has Unbreakable Will. He can take up hella turret shots. And Tangyuan is going to pick up himself another pretty critical kill as the Rift Herald also going in LGD's favor.
Incredibly well played from LGD to be able to pick up yet another kill. We get to see how this happened. It just looks like he's a little bit too far forward. Sasa in the lane, and then, of course, gets punished by the Grand Starfall coming in from Croco. At least they're staying proactive on the map with these plays. Speaking of...
Yep, they're going right after Croco. The Chains of Corruption holding people in place for now, but Croco will still end up falling with no vision. 1xN doesn't have a reliable shot to take to find any of those kills. The global pressure war is being waged and won by LGD handily right now.
I mean, they're just playing better. They are executing better on the map. And the reason that that is so scary is that this is the power spike for this comp for LNG. You need to make sure that you play through these ultimates and play towards the side lane. Utilize the advantage that Poke Varus gives you at this point in the game, which is the range and the ability to set up kills in the laning phase. And getting into these skirmishes in the jungle, it's just not beneficial to the comp. They've really fallen far behind, and this game is very quickly getting out of control.
Yeah, they need damage control ASAP, because it's not even like they can afford to make the argument of, oh, it's okay, we picked up 3 grubs, we picked up the first 2 drakes, we could stall the game. No, you can't stall the game, because stalling the game just makes LGD stronger. So it's a weird pocket where LNG actually have to continue this aggression to get their snowball back on track, because the future is already looking pretty dim.
Yeah, we said this at the beginning of the game. It was the #1 thing we highlighted with this draft is there is no damage if you are losing. Like, you have to be winning in this game. You have to be able to control River. You have to be able to establish vision so that you can poke out with Varus. If you can't do any of those things, it becomes so much harder to play. And now, Dragon spawning, it's sole point for LNG. They have to try and fight for this.
Shear's got a fat shield that he can hold on to for a bit longer with the Canic Rookin as well. They have first track into this Drake pit again. This has been the boon of LGD in this series so far, is they have just struggled on this side of the map, but main man Tangyuan is going to be the one to try and break things open with the flank. We saw how creative he was able to find an angle into 1xN when the lights went out. LNG really committing to just stay bunched as 5, so it's really hard for Heng to find a way in. But Tangyuan is actually taking it upon himself to just do the Dragon on his own. Croco has no vision. He can't get into the pit. Tangyuan continuing this creative Yone play, and he's looking for a Fate Seal. He gets 1xN to flash away from the charm, does land. Can he get back out before the damage comes across? Yes, but here comes the big hero's entrance. BuLLDog gets knocked on to Shaoye. Lights go out. They're going after 1xN. He is as good as done. Sasi gonna find that kill. YCX gets himself out of dodge as well. And LNG, they've got no range, and they've got no way to get on top of any of these targets. LGD scatter in all directions and cut down the fight. Grand Starfall is Croco trying to flank out into Shaoye, but they have to commit 2 flashes to find this one shutdown. Still, an overarching win for LGD.
It's a huge fight for LGD. If the game wasn't in full control of them earlier, it definitely is now with the way that they played it. And things, quite frankly, went as bad as they could at the beginning of that fight. We're definitely going to get a replay in terms of how things broke down with the Yone and the engage that happened there. But all it comes down to is that Nocturne ultimate right on top of your Varus, and all of a sudden things become a lot more difficult. Tangyuan looking for an engage onto the Varus, but just can't quite land it. The CC locking him down, but at this point he has so many shields because he's a full item up on almost everyone in the game that he's able to survive. Shaoye gets chunked out almost entirely, but that does not matter because he survives, and guess who doesn't? 1xN, his counterpart on the other side. Heng does have to flash over the wall to pick up the kill onto Missing here, but by this point, the damage is done. You pointed it out, no range. Without the Varus, there's no way to win these fights, and it was really, really well executed by LGD.
And the flash is still going to be down, and there's still flash on Tangyuan. Like, there's still going to be a Nocturne ultimate. Rumble's going to be able to flash on top of you. It's just almost impossible for 1xN to play out the game from this state. I am shocked to see our AI supercomputer still pitching a 50-50 game. Are we serious?
Yeah, that's maybe a little different than my opinion right now. The 5k gold lead for LGD aside, I already think that their comp executes significantly better in the late game. They're going to have full control of this. Baron has spawned onto the map that is ever more going to be a threat throughout the rest of this game for LGD to pull the trigger on, because that's just yet another area for them to pull a lot of attention into. And remember, these 5v5 fights, they are definitely not going to benefit LNG at this point in the game, especially without that Varus setup. So you have to be super, super careful. You've got the battle going down on the bot side, but it's the picks that you want to look for if you're LNG. You want to try and get to that side lane with those ultimates. See if they can utilize them here.
Level 15, he just doesn't fear anybody as the lights do go out. Good charm comes out from Missing. 1xN's protected for now. He does land the Chains of Corruption, but they're going to lose Croco as the Unbreakable Shield does come down. There's the Fate Unsealed under the turret. Tangyuan gets himself right back out with the Soul Form, and they take the pick onto Croco, and LGD smartly just get out of the fight because Baron's free for them now.
I mean, that's it, right? Get them to walk into you, the comp that has full control over this area, and then take the Baron. With no Dragon, this should be, or with no Jungler, this should be relatively easy. She's gonna try.
LNG, they're gonna work their way in. There's the hero's entrance. Tangyuan wants to go after him. Flash after 1xn, missing to a good job to cover with the equalizer on top of the damage. Now this Yone is enough to get rid of the only damage source left in LNG. Shear's gonna pull Tangyuan out of the pit with an all-out. Should find them some trade. But the Baron will be locked down from Heng. The smite to secure it. LNG scattered into the wind, and they found themselves in the exact same spot as this matchup held them in the first time round. We are set ourselves up for a Game 3 once again from LGD and LNG.
Oh, Slayer, after game number 1, I was getting nervous. I was getting worried that LGDs didn't have that fight in them for this series, but here we are, a 6.6k gold lead for LGD here in game number 2, and they're doing it so efficiently. Just incredible play from them to bait the fight in before this even starts, forcing the jungler to walk in and die so that they can create a scenario where they can go after this Baron. But once again, it's Tangyuan in the mid lane that is able to create so much on top of the equalizer. You've got the Yone damage, and the Varus has nothing to do. There's so much backline access from LGD that by this point, when he's supposed to have his lead, it's just not there, and there's no way to play. Sheer does well to, I guess, get the Baron buff off of the Yone, who can side lane super efficiently, but it's a consolation prize at best. LGD holds all the cards right now.
And now they're just gonna reap what they sowed. Gonna look to target some of these turrets with the push power of a Sivir, now up to nearly 3 items, which is a huge breakpoint for Shaoye in this matchup. They've got themselves the freest of dragons coming up in about 15 seconds to even up the Drake count. But the way this game's going, LGD, I don't really think they care that much about the dragon. They feel like they can close this game out with potentially one more big team fight. And again, LNG, it's just impossible to protect your Varus, and without him, you have no damage left in this game state.
And the hard thing is, like, you drafted this macro comp with Pantheon Galio, and there's no chance that you're going to be able to utilize those ultimates really at any point for anything other than the Galio shield throughout the rest of this game. You got to make sure that you can try and separate LGD. If you can't do that, it's going to be super hard to win these fights.
Already getting cornered in their own jungle. 1xn struggling to clear out these waves as well with the lethality Varus on these Baron waves. Get some decent poke into Shaoye, but these are very, very small wins that don't really matter too much. LGD will show some restraint and say, all right, we don't need to keep barreling in too hard to the enemy jungle, taking some poke. Let's just get our big beefy Yone mid laner on this dragon, and Heng will come around and smite it to even out that Drake count. So LNG for now at least holding somewhat strong. This isn't a very powerful Baron power play through the first about third of it.
Yeah, it's certainly not the one that you would sit back and go, okay, they broke the game open with this, but they definitely have a lot of control on the map right now, and the game state is not going to get better for this LNG team the longer that they wait. Yes, they'll get more items, but so will LGD, and they are going to have a much better time utilizing those items. Right now, at this point, it's going to be up to Pantheon and Galio to not walk into enemies and give the game away. Vision is of unbelievable paramount right now in terms of just what LNG need to do. They have to get into the river and lay down the Vision, or else this game is just unwinnable for them.
Baron is going to tick off of the LGD side, so again, they got like 300 gold from that Baron power play. It normally would be a good sign, but it's just, it really is beating a dead horse at this point. Like, you are not getting any value out of this game going any further. It's such a catch-22 where it's like, all right, we've done a good job defending and stalling, but also we have to make plays where this game ends no matter what, or this game ends off of stalling. It's so hard to find any avenue. All it can really look for is maybe Sasi overextends again. Tangyuan's done a really good job covering himself on the other side lane, but LGD are just not budging.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you want to give some sort of silver lining, never mind. Here we go.
Okay, we're going after Croco. I mean, you don't have enough damage to handle him on your own. Even with all these items, he's getting some serious autos down, but there comes the stack grab onto him. Flash for the all-out from Sheer. The style points are there. Shutdown was going to come nonetheless, and that is something. You trade a shutdown for a tier 2 turret. Small win for LNG.
Hey, you know what? I was about to say something to LNG, and they just took the words right out of my mouth. They put them out on the Rift instead. I was going to say, hey, the big advantage that you have is you still capitalize on mistakes incredibly well with this comp. If anybody oversteps, you have plenty of tools to be able to collapse around any sort of play that ends up happening with anybody overextending on a squishy side that is LGD. That's exactly what happens. Heng feels like he can completely destroy LNG, and he can't. And now Tangyuan.
All right, he has to Fate Unsealed to create some distance. Really well placed ult there from Croco. The only else going to come off the board, and again, shouldn't cost LNG much. There's no real push coming onto the tier 2 tower on the other side. Again, we talked about it in the mid-game of Game 1 for LNG versus LGD, where they gave them one small team fight win, and they pushed it to a mile. LNG showing some serious resolve, finding one mistake out of Heng, and pushing the tempo a bit more. This is really starting to stall out.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, again, a silver lining for LNG, it's that it really will just take one fight for them to have some gold and be able to kind of skirmish after that. Sheer is getting stronger and stronger on this K'Sante to be able to frontline.
He got the shutdown,
be able to
too.
play the late game. He got the shutdown. You're absolutely correct. That gold is going into the right pocket. You need to make sure K'Sante can absorb a lot of the damage, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to the peel. If Nocturne can get onto this Varus and really blow him up before the fight ever starts, then these 5v5s are going to be doomed from the beginning. Croco and BuLLDog still going to play a massive role in how the rest of this game goes.
Hey, want to extend my prodigy son? Take notes from your top laner. He built Randuin's Omen in the right game. This is the game to build. Oh, Croco going to lose out on his blue buff. LNG, it's not worth it to defend your jungle. You will just get collapsed on. Missing is playing a very dangerous game, but Tangyuan doesn't really care about it. So I guess support will combat as always. Once the supports start fighting each other, nobody really cares. Baron back up on the Rift, though. Round 2 for LGD.
This is worst case scenario. I mean, LNG have no vision. There's no way to check this, and it's going to burn down incredibly fast. You can force this 5v5 for free.
All right, LGD, smart approach here. They're going to look for the death rush. Went on to Sheer, but Tangyuan gets BuLLDog. Good time to go into the stasis here. You see if he can flash away. Gets the taunt down. That is a lot of Tangyuan's juice taken out of the smoothie. Doesn't have that big ults. Fate Unsealed and the spell form going to come off the board, and well, that one little peruse out of the fight from BuLLDog does get LGD off the Baron for now.
Well played by BuLLDog to be able to dissuade. Here we go, Shaoye.
After Shaoye, no, instead it was going after Sasi. The hero's entrance, they can't get the knock-up though. Sasi's going to flash back under his turret. Missing does go under that said turret as the lights do go out. But Heng doesn't really have a way to ult in. He's going to finally go in. He's spell shooting away from the taunt. Equalizer is going to whiff. Shaoye has to flash away from Sheer, but now he just gets collapsed on by all of LGD, and yeah, he is not that tanky, so there's the pick down for LGD, and now they can make their dance routine return to the Baron pit.
I mean, the desperation from LNG in that play. There's just no way that you're ever going to be able to kill the Rumble in time to make that worth it. They want to go for it anyways, missing TPs back in to at least be in the area. We've got pings going down. They could look to try and steal this, but it would take an absolute miracle at this point for LNG to be able to get back in, especially with no Grand Starfall available for Croco. Baron will go down, and LGD will get their second of the game. A 7.5k gold lead. And more mistakes coming from LNG. They just can't hold on to this late game that they were hoping to kind of avoid with the draft that they had. And now it will be soul point as well for LGD.
Methodical approach out of LGD again. Showing some really good signs. Oh, 1xN had a shot at the classic Gumayushi, but now he will be punished for it. He gets stunned up on top of the equalizer, and then Heng delayed Paranoia ults on top of him. And with 1xN down, LNG really can't afford to hold any real estate out of the side of their base.
I mean, it's just so tough. I understand why you want to be in the area, but, I mean, sacrificing your life for nothing at this point, it just goes to show LNG are not put in this position often where they are down in gold and losing in the late game. They are not reacting well, and LGD, to their credit, have been excellent in the late game here at pulling the trigger. See if they can do so here on the final push.
They got Tangyuan off to the side, gets the pick on a Missing. Fate Unsealed. Good knockups come across, though. Missing does get himself out. Croco and BuLLDog are fine. Tangyuan does have to flash away from where he returns to his soul. Sheer nearby, but at least Tangyuan has grabbed all of LNG's attention to allow for the mid inhibitor to get knocked down. LGD finally starting to break open the base of LNG and work their way closer and closer to forcing this series the distance.
Methodical was definitely the correct word here, Slayer. It's definitely a, slower approach, we'll just say, from LGD. They have a 10k gold lead, and yet they feel they want to make sure there is not going to be a problem. Guardian Angel acquired for Heng. That is a massive acquisition. This Nocturne can have no fear now in these fights. Some of the avenues to get back into the game slowly disintegrating for LNG. Very quickly, I should say, disintegrating for LNG. And at this point, it's all just about what they can find. You gotta find picks because these 5v5s are not going to go your way.
And the real dilemma right now for LNG is Sheer has to be the only one that feels comfortable matching into Tangyuan, and he is on the bot side, knocking on the door of that bot tier 1 turret, but with the position they're in, yeah, they have to bring BuLLDog down to answer him, and they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. I feel like we're just going to have to give this tier 2 turret or surrender another inhibitor towards the bot side. Nobody is answering this Yone, and with the Spirit Form safety, I mean, look at the chunks he puts into this thing. That was just a flurry of autos, and it's already gone. BuLLDog going to get the taunt down to try and cover, but the damage is putrid. The cannon minion might just get the turret on its own. On the top side, Sheer still can't hold the tier 2 turret that they had to surrender nonetheless. There's the bot lane, tier 3 down, and the tier 2 to follow.
Yeah, they're just kind of desynced right now on the map, as potentially YCX could be getting caught. Does have to burn quite a bit. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Does still have the ultimate. He's getting very low, though. Definitely pushing the pace there. That's where Poke Varus can actually come in pretty clutch. It dissuades the entire game-ending push. A lot of damage coming down from that Varus. You just got to be able to keep him safe. They might have survived this Baron, the second of 2 that we've had so far, but Soul is very much going to be on the table in 2 minutes, and these fights are only going to get more difficult with the inhibitors now cracked open. You got to watch out. This game could really end at any time.
I sense, though, that LGD in their unyielding resolve will just safely farm the waves that push out towards them and wait for that Chemtech Soul. So we are still kind of locked into this state unless Heng wants to go for another play here onto Croco. This is what got him caught the last time. This time he doesn't have a GA, but runs into a taunt, runs into a knockup, another stun. Where's the damage, LNG? Any other game, any other draft, that should be a dead Nocturne, but it's just not in this world.
I mean, it's astounding. I have not seen Nocturne dive into 4 people and barely take half his health before. It's truly incredible how far behind LNG are with just the lack of damage this comp inherently has, and of course the situation that their gold is in. Look at the difference in items right now. Look at BuLLDog's inventory versus Tangyuan's inventory. That's a 5,000 gold difference in the mid lane. It's just really hard to push things forward. That death cap is, you know, much needed for BuLLDog, but it's definitely looking a little too late. So we see the Yone continuing to push onto the top side. This is just going to be a continuous push. We'll see if they want to go for Soul in 45 seconds or if they want to play these side lanes to potentially end the game. Looks like they do want to try and play for the objective, but either way, they're likely going to have full control.
Croco, there's no world you think you can get this. I mean, all right, Missing's here, BuLLDog's here, but I mean, this is not your jungle anymore. And yeah, Sasi and YCX will back him out. He smites to secure the red buff. Lights are going to go out. They're going to go after Croco again. Good knockup from YCX. He's going to hold the Unbreakable. YCX is making sure that BuLLDog can't rejoin. Missing has himself a lovely flank if it weren't for the fact that his team is dying on the front line. He's desperately trying to walk back. 1xN's going to hit the field goal on the Chains of Corruption, so nobody gets stalls out. BuLLDog going to try and Hero's Entrance out, but instead he's stun locked in place. And LGD might not need that Chemtech Soul. They're just going to corral the straggling LNG members and point them towards their crumbling base to polish off one of their most dominating wins of the split, to once again claim a victory over LNG, the only team to do so far in Group Nirvana. The question remaining will be, can they do it again to hand LNG their only series loss of the year? Have to find out in that Game 3. But for now, it's just the formalities of knocking down the base if you are LGD. Turrets go down, lights go out, Nexus is out, and we've got ourselves a full slate series for Group Nirvana action.
Okay, Slayer, we've got it. We figured it out. We have started to lock in on what our identity is. We just need to make sure that they draft no damage and we can get to the late game and win the game. It all ends up working out for LGD. Of course, jokes aside, they did play the map incredibly well. They understood that even with a lot of the proactivity that Pantheon Galio offers on the other side, if you can either match with the Nocturne or alternatively just avoid those situations altogether by clumping up, you're going to have a huge advantage. I think LGD played this game really well.
Yeah, and you know, something you said when actually described, you know, in the break we had, you were describing how LGD kind of used the phrase, some of these Nirvana teams just overthink these games. LNG really overthought that draft. And yeah, I mean, you know, credit to Tangyuan and LGD. I think this game looks a lot different if they don't feel confident enough to like slam an AD mid laner when the Galio comes out. Like, this is double AP. The Galio is a lot more valuable. It's a whole different game. But yeah, I mean, looking back at that LNG draft, I have some questions.
Well, I mean, it also raises the question, if it's double AP, if you do draft, you know, a mage, a Syndra, in the mid lane to go along with the Nocturne, does Galio build tank that game and you have even less damage? Like, what's the direction that you go in, right? Yeah. You know, like, even then, like, you're still starting to find some issues in the identity. It's just a really hard draft. I said it in draft. LGD had the better draft, and I think they executed better as well. I think LNG really overthought this. You have to win this game before 15 minutes to really have a chance, and that just wasn't going to happen for them here.
Not going to happen indeed. LNG still have a bit of woes when it comes up to their LGD counterparts. Yeah, I mean, we're going to go through the post-game stats. Not a lot of things that really tell the tale. The gameplay really did. 1xN, these damage numbers are fake. You were playing a very short-range comp that you could constantly put damage into, so... good for you to top the damage charts. I don't think he really cares that he did this much damage after that game.
Yeah, I mean, he had a rough time getting Nocturne ulted every single fight and just not being able to play. It's a hard existence for the Varus. I understand the idea of Poke Varus here. Again, I know it's probably going to get a lot of hate everywhere because Poke Varus is certainly not the most popular way to play the champion, but generally your identity this game, even with like an on-hit Varus, is that we still have to win in the early game, and Poke Varus does that more efficiently. If the rest of the team is running it down, there's no way to play this in the late game anyways. It just kind of ends up being what it is. On-hit Varus doesn't have the mobility to dodge this, so... You know, it just kind of is what it is. It's just an unfortunate game for 1xN. Probably his worst of the split up until this point, and that's the thing for LNG. I mean, this is a team that hasn't had to go through a lot of adversity. We'll see what they can do now in Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't get over the Galio pick because you are you are now saying, all right, the Nocturne Yone comp, you can't ult anybody reliably but our AD carry. By the way, he's immobile. So, we thought we got you. You can only ult one guy. It's a double cross because that guy can only do that, which is flash, and then oh wait, there's a Nocturne in this game, right? There's a Nocturne. Yep, there's the Nocturne, and my game's over.
Yeah, I mean, the game ended pretty fast. Like, all it takes is one fight. Again, you can't screw up with this LNG draft, and I think that is the main takeaway. I agree the Galio is the biggest problem with this draft, not only because of the lack of damage, but really because you have no actual use of the Galio if you're not ulting in on the Pantheon. Like, the champion just doesn't really accomplish all that much going into the rest of the comp here. I mean, it's there for peel, and if that's what you're drafting your mid laner for, it's just hard. He was down 5,000 gold in this game. It was just rough overall for BuLLDog, and, you know, we highlighted that BuLLDog has been the player that we've had the most amount of question marks on LNG, even in their wins so far. Yep. Certainly was a bit of a mid-gap here in game number 2, and there were shades of that in game number 1 as well.
Without a doubt, Kman. And so, player of the game, I think should very clearly be Tangyuan, by the way. Share that sentiment?
Yeah. I mean, Heng had a great game on the Nocturne. I certainly, you know, if he didn't go in and die to Croco, I would have felt a bit more passionately about his chances for MVP, but I agree. I think the Yone was incredible in this game, especially it being something that he clearly was, like, ready to pull out. We haven't seen it from him this split, but he looked very comfortable on the champion. The matchup went well, and I thought he played side lanes great, if that, you know, even mattered at the end of the game there either. Yeah.
Well, it gets him the MVP, so... Tangyuan, one of his most stellar games. I think even with how much we're preaching that the draft was very friendly towards his LGD team, he still does make the really nice plays off of the paranoia in those fights that were supposed to be where LNG could find thriving wins. So congratulations, Tangyuan. LGD, we are getting a second crack at what we couldn't do earlier on in this split, and that is topple the undefeated series score that is LNG. The only team to take games off of this squad, but that doesn't really matter in the standings if that team ends up undefeated. Can LGD right their woes of the first round robin, or do we have ourselves LNG as the solid best team out of Group Nirvana? One of those two realities will come to your screens after another break.